Hello everyone, I hope you must doing well. So in this video we are going to learn how I made this wood texture. Alright, so it is having this node structure, right? And basically I will explain everything right now, and after that we are going to build the wood structure, the texture, right, from scratch, right? As we are having the base mesh over here and we are having the principal BSTF and the material output, right? So before starting with it, let's discuss what going on over here, right? So here the texture coordinate is there. So whenever you are going to add a texture coordinate, and we are using the object one, right? So let me disconnect this one and we can plug the object into the factor, right? So what is happening over here? You can see the node over here and the node over here, there is difference. As we don't needed the generated normal UV and the reflection, all these parameters. That's why there are two ways to hide any node. You can press H in your keyboard. Let me on the screencast first. Yeah, you can press H to hide, or you can press Ctrl H, right? So what does the Ctrl H is doing? Whatever node input or output is connected, that will be visible and the remaining node will get minimized, right? So that is happening over here, and we already got familiar about the mix RGB, okay, which is over here, right? If you are using the older version of Blender, then you are having probably this interface, and if you are using the new version of Blender, then you are having this long interface over here, right? And we are having the one musgrave texture, which probably you are aware about when I was discussing about the procedural texture. And again we are using the texture coordinate, right, in the vector, right? About the object info, that we will cover later. And you know what is separate XYZ, and we'll get to know on these two when we are going to proceed the texture over here, right? But for now, yeah. And we are having this node structure over here. So it is having the first block and the second block is over here. So it is a vector, okay? So whatever color over here, right, and the color is over here, right? So over here in the vector we are having different values, right? So it is a vector. So how you going to get this node, right? So you needed to have math, and there is another math one, is this one, okay, these two, and another one is math vector, right? Under the math vector there is an option for length, and you are having this thing, right? For the multiply we are using, we can have this. For the ping pong we are having, where it is, here it is, okay. And again you are familiar about the map range, and again normal structure is there, the color RGB, sorry, the color ramp, the noise texture, and the simple one texture coordinate we are connecting with the vector, right? And one more thing, if you are not aware about why we are connecting the texture coordinate with the object only, right? Okay, so you needed to watch the previous video with a heading of, probably we have discussed that thing in the second video, right, where I discuss about the different coordinate of texture coordinate, right? So you needed to watch the second video of this node learning series, right? And we are having simple color ramp. This color ramp we added with roughness parameter. You can disconnect also, but we added no reason in that, no big reason in this, okay? So you got familiar about all this node structure. You can take the screenshot if you want, okay, 1, 2 and 3, yeah. So we are going to make this wood texture from scratch, right? Yeah. Probably I will attach this mesh. I will attach the FBX in the description, but it is a simple one. You simply going to add a cube, right? And if you are going to scale it down. Okay, let me on the screencast over here also. Let me bring this one. Okay, and going to increase this one, and in this manner you can, and just in a quick way I am explaining everything. Okay, so somehow in this manner you can make this. Okay, we can increase this one, okay, if you want, according to the main which you are having. The rotation is over here, a little bit of angle rotation. You can do that by selecting this and moving like this, right? You can use this one so that it will going to influence the nearby areas also. And probably you are having this thing. Okay, we can add the loop cut over here also. It is very quick one, I think, but you will get this thing, right? Little bit is over here. I think we needed to add. I think we got the same thing. Okay, no issue. We can delete this one, and we are going to work on this. Wireframe is on, and you can see the location, rotation, and the scale, right? Just to show up thing. Okay, yeah, we can start with, let's have in the render view, we are using the cycles, and again we are not going to use any displacement or height values. So if you have wish to work with the EV, you can work in the EV also, right? Yeah, so we can, first thing what we can add a texture coordinate, right? As we know, we are having this workflow over here, so that's why I'm adding the texture coordinate over here, and whatever the further node is there, that will be following over here, right? That's why I drag and drop the texture coordinate over here. Yeah, so what we can do right now, let's have a separate XYZ. We can preview this one directly, right? Screencast, my god. Control Shift and left mouse button. We can continue by hitting it again and again, so that you can switch by different parameters. So we are on the object, right? So what object texture coordinate is doing, wherever the pivot point is, right? Pivot point or the origin, you can say, right, at the center, right? So it is acting on the basis of that. If you are connecting with generated, again it is something which scatters on the surface, right? So that's why we are using the object one, right? Yeah, so we can connect this one to a vector, and what we have, if you had watched that video where I discussing about the gradient texture, right? So probably you get to know like what is difference between the generated and object, like, okay, sorry for the fumble. Yeah, so that's why whenever we connected with separate XYZ, so whatever we have over here, right, it will only showing the result. Wait a minute. Okay. So it is only showing the result only on x-axis, right? When we are having on the y, y is over here, the green axis, it is over green, and z is over here, right? And we can have the combine XYZ. So why we are having the combine XYZ? Because we only want x and z coordinate, right? So that's why we are using the combine XYZ. Okay, so what is happening over here? From this side, from texture coordinate, let me bring this thing. It will be a little bit long video, but we'll try to cover everything. I explained this thing in previous video also. From texture coordinate, x, y and z axes are coming, right? In the separate x, y, z, again we are having x, y and z, but we selected only x and z, right? So what it is going on, we are having only x and z, right? Why we are having only x and z? Because we are only connected with x and z over the combined x, y, z, as the y-axis is over here and that is empty, right? If we are going to connect this thing over here, then same thing will happen which is happening over here, over here. Okay, the result of this node, determinate not, yeah, that is the result of the object coordinate which is connected directly, and the result of this thing is same, right? Because when we are on the place of texture coordinate, the same thing is driven over here, right? So there is no use of these two over here. Okay, so I hope I cleared my point. So we can delete this one. So how I deleted, control and right mouse button, so that you are having this thing and we can drag, right? You can draw or you can cut that, right? We can erase the annotation. Okay, so we can have the frame, right? You can select the node, you can press the Ctrl J in your keyboard and you can have the frame, right? Yeah, so what we are going to do now, let's have a math node. Okay, also we want the vector math, right? Under the vector math we are going to use the length. Under the math we are going to use the multiply as well as the ping pong, which is over where it is over here, right? We can make them as a frame. We can drag and drop, right? We are going to connect as a vector in a values 1. You can connect in any values, right? These to a similar one. Okay, not similar, but when you are going to connect with any of one, then that value is going to act as a same thing, right? Okay, so what is over here? Let me bring the thing so that you can see. We can press Control H to hide all the remaining parameter, and we needed to play with the values which is over here, right? Why it is not working? I think it should work. Let's add a masquerade texture over here, so probably it will going to show the effect, but let's see. We needed to add a mix RGB, right? You can have this thing or you can press Ctrl Shift, okay, and you can drag by right click so that you are having the mix RGB like this, right? Okay, again the color values, and we are going to use over here. Yeah, it is showing the result. Again we are going to use the object over here also, and we can play with these values, right? We can increase this value over here, So probably why it is not working when we are having only this thing, the object over here. Yeah, it was working, but fine. So it's having this type of texture when we are having this. Okay, so we are having this thing, okay, and it is showing this type of texture over here, right? At this point you can add a color ramp. So let's add a color ramp also. So before going over here, right, over this area, let me explain this thing. Before going this area where we connected in between the mix RGB and the color ramp and the masquerade texture over here. So let's see before that, or removing that, what result we have over here, right? So we can get the same result but having the different pattern, right? So we can give this color, we can have different colors, you can copy and paste the values in your color ramp, okay, and let me do that, then we'll speak. Yeah, and the last one, the value is D3824 and C. Yeah, it is having this thing, right? It is very simple one. You can play with these values, right? You can play, yeah. So it is also a type of wood texture which you get from this simple node structure. All right, but we needed a little bit more variation, right? So for the variation we needed to switch back over here and again the mix RGB into the between so that we can connect these two. Okay, why it is not showing any effect? Because it is not connected with the whole node structure. We can decrease this value. All right, and now you can see, yeah. So when we didn't have the masquerade texture, it was like this, but when we added the masquerade texture over in this location, right? So let me organize bit so that you will understand. Yeah, if you are having any question like is there is only the masquerade texture we can add? No, it is not compulsory. Under the texture there are different texture, you can use any of those, right? For example, we can have, for example, under the texture we can have the noise texture, right? Why noise texture? Yeah, we can drag and drop over here, but the only thing is it will going to have the different effect. Okay, if you want this type of wood texture, then it is completely fine in its own place, right? But for now we needed to follow the same thing, right? As we are having the goal to make this type of texture, right? So that's why we are going to use the same thing. So we will keep these values and you can copy paste these values in your Blender software. Okay, one more thing is there, like over here there is, okay, so what we have right over here, let's leave this file. We want some noise over here, right? So for that what we can do, let's add a noise texture. Again, you can add any texture, right? There is no limitation in that, and we can use a map range, right? Again, you will get confused why always map range, but we'll explain in a minute. So we can preview the noise texture directly by Control Shift and left mouse button, and we will going to use the object one over here. If you are a bit confused, then let me add in this way, right? Okay, you can press Ctrl H in your keyboard Okay, we can add a color ramp over here. Okay, so that we can increase the contrast of black and white values. Okay, and the reason why I'm using the map range is that we are going to connect this thing, Control J, and yeah, so we are going to connect this node structure to the we are going to connect this node structure with the minimum values, right? Why minimum values? Because the line is over here, right? Those are 0 and it is where the color yellow is there, that is 1, right? So if we are going to connect the color to the minimum, then it will going to mask over the minimum values only, right? So for now the values are too much, we can decrease this thing. Okay, even the contrast is also too much, so we are having this thing. Okay, so what you can see, wherever the black line is there, okay, so in that area this the whole node structure is working on, right? So probably in your mind you are also having thought, like in the previous video of masking I showed you by using the mix RGB, right? Okay, so I told you not mix RGB, header mix RGB, yeah, the color, right? So in a previous video of masking I told you you can mask with this node, right? So you can also do that by that also. So we can drag and drop and remove the color, the mix RGB from there. We can connect this thing over here, and what we want, right? So we want this to be masked, right? So probably we are going to connect this thing as a factor, this thing over here, and the color of this thing is going to be controlled by the P1, right? We can give the green color. It's not showing because it is having that one. It will not show because why it is not showing, if we going to remove the color ramp from between, then we will directly click on mix RGB, it is showing the color, right? Then why when we are having the mix the color ramp in between, why it is not showing the blue color? It is because the color ramp is overlapping those values. Okay, and the reason why it is there, right? So by default it is on white values. Okay, so we can keep the by default, and we can see that the same result we get if you want to use the mix RGB for masking, you can use, and if you want to use the map range for mixing the mask, right, you can use the map range also. As we are having the more and efficient control over the map range with using the map range, so that's why I having, like, you should use the map range, as we are having different parameters and we can play with those. Okay, we can in videos of these, right? Here I used the map range. Okay, and if you don't want to use the map range and bit confused, you can use the mix RGB. Okay, and again the color ramp, and we can connect the color ramp with the base color, and over here we also connected this thing as a roughness. Okay, you can do that also, no issue in that, but not. So we are having this wood texture over here, right? And probably you got all the issues, and you learn all the thing. Let me get back over here and let me show the main thing. So it was this one. Initially it was this one, after that this one, and then we are having the same this one with different structure, the texture pattern, right? So over here everything is same, right? Everything is same, this thing as compared to this one which I did right now. Okay, everything is same, but we added this value as a bump, right? You can delete that also. Okay, yes. So the only thing is there, this one which I marked with the red frame, and this thing. So for now I'm not going to discuss this thing as I already marked with red. Okay, but we will discuss this thing. Okay, so what it is doing over here, let me get back into this thing, and let's bring the geometry coordinate, and here it is the pointedness value, right? And the same thing is used over here. Okay, so what does the pointedness value is doing? It is creating the black mask over the edge, right now you cannot see anything because we needed to add a color ramp to give the contrast. Okay, so that is a work of the pointedness value and control H. And again here I used the map range, right? If you want to use the map range, as I already told, not once, I told probably 5 times, that you can use the map range or the color ramp. They are having their own importance in their own different places. Okay, so that is the map range it is doing over here, right? It is masking on the edge, and to highlight the edge more, so that's why the pointedness value it is using I used, and that pointedness value can be connected, right, as a masking, right? Again you can use the map range again over here to mask that thing. So what I did, the whole node structure over here, that is pointing this thing, and we want this thing as a mask. So whatever thing you needed as a mask, that you needed to connect as a factor, as I told you many times, and that factor color is going to be controlled by this value, and the foreground texture or the pattern is going to be connected on a color ramp, and this thing is connected to base color, and we are having the results, right? That pointedness value I didn't use over here also, but to look little bit simple, so that's why I explained you right differently. And yeah, so I think you got the point. And one more thing I did over here, the object info, we are having the random. So what it is doing, we needed to switch into the 4D. I switched, or in what values, yeah, 4D. Under the 4D, let's bring the object info. So what does the random is doing? So it will, whenever you are going to duplicate the object, right, it will going to duplicate each and every time differently, right? For example, shift D, right? You can connect this thing in a detail, right? So that you are having different texture variation. You can also connect to the scale also, so that having different scale, right? Different scale of each and every object you will duplicate, right? I connected with all, and here I only connected with this value, right? And if you are not aware about what is this value, then again you needed to watch the previous video of procedural texturing, right? And I hope I covered the everything. Okay, we can delete. And let's switch back to the original one. Okay. Yeah. Also, one thing, you can take the screenshot of this one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I hope you taken that. And control space bar, you can also take the screenshot of this one. I will attach the FBX of this and you can have this thing. Okay, so I think this is the last video of this series of learning node in Blender, or the procedural nodes, or whatever term you will call that. And I hope you learn everything, the thing which I found that you should know. Yeah, we can end this video, and we are going to have, I'm having the more plan on this channel so that you all get to know in future, and waiting for your response for this series. And bye bye, take care.